you enjoyed that little trailer. Now let me go a little bit more in depth as to what's in this bundle. First of all assets in this download are high-resolution .pngs with transparency, meaning that they'll work with any editing software. All you have to do is put the PNG on the top layer and then adjust the footage underneath. Personally, inside Premiere Pro, I like using the crop effect. I'll click it inside the effects control window, and then I'll just drag the handles as I need to. Another way to do this is just to create a mask with the pen tool, whichever way is quickest for you. All 16:9 PNGs are 3840 pixels wide by 2160 pixels high. That's 4K UHD. So if you put this on a 1920 by 1080 HD timeline, just hit set to frame size and it will scale it down proportionally. And speaking of proportions, going into this, I wanted to design something specifically for editors and creators making content on YouTube and social platforms like Instagram and TikTok. As an editor that also uses preset packs, one of the things that bugs me the most in this ever-changing world of how we consume social media is that most of these packs are designed only for 16:9 horizontal sequences. And that's just not the real world. Whether I'm creating something for a client or myself on my own YouTube channel, I'm posting versions of that horizontal content on vertical platforms like Instagram. So I made sure to create split screen overlays of the specific aspect ratios of vertical 9:16, 4:5, which is the tallest that you can get something on the scroll feed inside Instagram, as well as 1:1 square. Keeping with that concept, I also created a set of letterbox overlaid mats, as well as some ratio guides to help you with your 16:9 and 9:16 content. While you're editing, if you quickly want to know if something's going to fit in an Instagram post or not, just throw this guide on. I made it so the inside of the line is the boundary. So if any of your footage is touching, going behind, or across the line, then you know it's outside the boundary. For the vertical lines, there's boundaries for 9:16, 4:5, 1:1, and because 4:3 seems to be making a comeback, I threw that in there as well. I also have two horizontal guides. Again, sticking with YouTubers in mind, the 19.5:9 is the exact ratio of the new iPhones. So if you pinch zoom a 16:9 video, that's what it's going to zoom into. The last line should be familiar to those that work in film. This is the actual resolution of 4K. It's a bit wider than 4K UHD, which consumers, including myself, call that 4K. But if you're working in professional productions or cinema, the actual resolution of 4K looks like that last line. I've done this for vertical video as well. So you have a guide for the 4:5, 1:1, and 16:9 inside a vertical 9:16. A good example of where this can be super helpful is for Instagram Reels. When you create that content, it's in 9:16, but the preview that appears on the Instagram scroll feed is 4:5. So if you want a quick way to make sure that all of the vital information that you have in that reel is seen in that 4:5 dimension, just throw the 4:5 mat on there and you'll know immediately. Moving to the split screen PNGs, all of their titles start with the aspect ratio. Then there's the style. There's simple and borders. Simple is very straightforward. It has no borders. It's just straight lines. People like musicians might find this one the most useful because you can use it for that content where you're playing a whole bunch of instruments simultaneously and you want to show all of those on the screen at the same time. Now, borders, on the other hand, emulates more of a film style where it's thick lines and curved corners. Then comes the number of slots or openings that you can put footage in. For example, 4A, 4B, and 4C are all different designs, but the one thing that they all have in common is they all have 4 holes that you can place that footage. The last section of the label tells you whether the asset is black or white. Each design comes in both of those colors. I initially only had them in black, but I soon found out inside Premiere Pro that this made things really hard because the thumbnail background is also black. So I created white versions as well. This helps out a couple ways. In the Finder, you'll find out that the ones with the white design won't show up because the background and the thumbnails of the Mac Finder are also white. So when you're looking at them, whether it be black or white, you know that the designs are right next to each other. It isn't as much of an issue if you hit spacebar to preview them because then you can see either of them. Another tip to help with this for Premiere Pro users is in the program monitor, go to the wrench and select transparency grid. Now, instead of a black background, you can see the transparency. If you want to change the color of the overlay to any kind of color inside Premiere Pro, go to the Effects tab and search for Tint. Drag that onto the overlay, and now we have options to map our white or our black to whatever color you want to. Another common effect is to blur the borders overlays to emulate that film look. In Premiere Pro, this can be done by dragging the Gaussian blur effect onto the overlay, blur it to taste, and just make sure that you click the box that says Repeat Edge Pixels. Lastly, let me touch on this topic of shape modifiers. I've created them in 1x1 square, 16x9 horizontal, and vertical 9x16. The reason I created these 3 different versions of them is because it makes it so much easier to slot them into the gaps of the pre-existing designs. As I showed in the trailer, I was filling those vertical gaps with the vertical versions of the shapes. If I have squares, you can just pop it into a square, and the same goes for horizontal. If you want to fill a gap and you don't want to put anything in there, in Premiere Pro, it's really easy to do. At the bottom, the little paper icon, click that, and then go up to color matte. Select whatever color you want, and then treat it as if it were any other piece of footage, where you can add the crop tool, or you could use a mask. Again, the bundle is available to download on my website, javiermercedes.com. If you decide to get it, thank you so much for supporting me and what I do. Until next time, I hope you're out there living a life of abundance. Bye.